this weekend we had a leak get out there around the Switch 2 that explains a lot when it comes to all of these game key cards that we're seeing pop up. In fact, we're seeing them for some titles that don't make any sense at all if there were multiple cartridge sizes available. The running theory and rumor has been that there are very limited capacities to pick from. Some have mentioned there's maybe 2, and then you have the game key card. Well, it turns out it's actually fewer than that even, and well, we're going to take a look at that here today and how this leak out of Arc System Works has actually given us all the details around what these publishers are working with currently. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. So the idea has been that there is a 64 gigabyte cartridge that Nintendo has available for third parties as well as first party. And I mean, it works out for Cyberpunk because they've been saying, hey, we're using a 64 gigabyte cartridge. It's part of their marketing. It's like, hey, the game you bought, it's actually on the cartridge that you spent money on. Yeah, it's strange still that is part of the marketing, but it does set them apart, CD Projekt Red, with their Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition release from like 50% of the releases on the Switch 2, and it seems to be climbing every day as games are at least mentioned or released. It's like, yeah, that's probably going to be a game key. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, I'm looking at that like, yeah, it's probably going to be a game key. I mean, I've seen Square Enix already do some stuff where it doesn't really play into the idea of them splurging on a 64 gigabyte cartridge for their Final Fantasy VII release. So when we got information out of Arc System Works, which, for transparency here, there was what appears to be a leak or a hack of Arc System Works, and information has been trickling out from that. So at one example, we have found out that apparently it's being alluded to the Switch 2 releasing in March rather than June, at least just based on some of the documentation that's been shared from Arc System Works with some of the planning around a certain game that they're putting out there. But we know that apparently it was maybe delayed a few months then into June. Who knows? Maybe it could have been supply or logistical stuff behind the scenes, or even games just not necessarily being ready from Nintendo. Think about it, they have Mario Kart World, and then they're going right into Donkey Kong Bonanza. So clearly they have this kind of lined up as quick releases back to back, and then we'll find out about more releases, I feel like in June, of course, when we have that expected direct. But when it comes to the game keys, check this out. This was posted up by Necro Felipe over on Twitter X, and the way this is working with the information getting out there, it's, from what I can tell, being kind of thrown around on places like Discord, and then it's being transmitted out to other social media platforms. In this case, Necro Felipe having the information and then bringing it over here. And then through translation, they mentioned that we have digital game only, or DL, cartridge with full game, 64 gigabytes, and then the code name for the key card format is Potion. There was something clever I saw. I feel like it was on one of the forums, Reset Era Fanboards, or Reddit. It was somewhere. But they looked at it and said, oh, so the Potion's like, you have the bottle, that's the card, and then you fill it up with the download. I don't know if that was the thinking when they came up with the code name, but that strangely fits really, really well. So maybe that is the case. But what this shows, again, just based on the leaked information, at least in this case, Arc System Works is working with the decision of, do we go with the key card, or do we go with the full 64 gigabyte cartridge, even if our game is nowhere near that size? That's the big issue in this situation, is there doesn't seem to be any middle ground right now. And even beyond this, before, with some of the rumors going around, we were thinking, okay, there's an 8 gigabyte cartridge out there. To me, that fell through immediately. So we've kind of come to this determination, just way of what these publishers are doing. So, like, if we take a look at this is a page that GameSpot put out there, and many of these sites are doing this, where they're like, let's make a list of all of the game key cards and then all of the full game cartridges, like all the entire game they're using a 64 gigabyte cartridge, all that. The list of full games is so small for third parties. I mean, we have Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, and Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. Keep in mind that these are in like the West. I believe in Japan, we're seeing game key cards for Marvelous. And that's the other thing. It's even regional, right? So it depends on where you're on the world to even just see a game key versus in the West for these, where it's 64 gigabytes. And then you get down to the list of just game key cards, and you can see just, I mean, yeah, like all the third parties. Now, the thing with this is Nintendo, from a first-party perspective, it seems like they're going full-on with 64 GB cartridges. And what's odd is you see Donkey Kong at 70, Mario Kart at 80, despite them both having the same cost when it comes to capacity. The reasoning, I assume, is just, hey, it's Mario Kart. It's a big enough franchise to warrant what we believe to be a higher price point at 80. Also, look at Donkey Kong. That's going to be, we assume, mostly single player. Still up in the air about multiplayer, even if it's somewhat of a light co-op mode like we saw with Mario Odyssey, where someone's having Cappy fly around or something like that. But that's not going to be a game that's necessarily going to last anywhere near as long as what Mario Kart World will, which, based on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, could be on the Switch 3 for all we know, right? As a remaster or whatever. But if you look up and down the list, some of these make sense. So Madden, NFL 26. It's going to be a larger file size, and we know EA, they're thinking, game key, whatever. Like, it's a lot of these third parties don't necessarily go, we need to make sure our games are preserved while still paying Nintendo 30% cuts of these releases. Doesn't make sense for them, okay? So when I look up and down the list, larger file size I get. But if there was an 8 GB cartridge that was available, why would Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S be on a game key? Because I would assume that 8 GB cartridge would be cheaper. If there's a 4 GB cartridge, guess what? They'd be able to fit it because it is a 4 GB full game download through the internet that's required for a game key. So to me, as soon as we saw this, where it's like, hold on, the game key card isn't even necessarily solving the problem of 50 GB games or something. No, it's solving 4 GB games. Something is off here. That's when the question started mounting, and now having this information, it all makes sense now. Like, this explains everything about the current situation with the game key. Now, why do we only have, apparently, a 64 GB cartridge that's available? Well, there's some running theories right now that maybe Nintendo decided rather than having a variety of cartridge sizes, it would make more sense in the long run to have a single 64 GB cartridge that can be manufactured much more frequently if that's all that's offered, if third parties get on board or eventually get on board. Maybe the plan is, hey, over time these will get cheaper, and then you'll start to see the game key go more to the background than right now where it's just in the forefront. That's a lot of assumption, though. That's a lot of hope at this point, because I have to imagine game key cards, those are 100 megabytes. It doesn't have to be much. And I don't know how a 64 GB cartridge is ever going to get that cheap. So if it's going to be normalized for game key, why would you get off of that if you're a company that's already thinking more and more in line with digital games? Third parties really don't have, most of them, big publishers, don't really have a reason to keep holding up retail necessarily or these physical games. It's just more cost for them. Digital is, I'm sure, where many of them would like the market to completely turn to, but there are many of us who are still holding on to the physical copies and the retail copies, and we're like, not quite. But I will say, when I see game key cards, I understand that it's a solve for a problem that is out there right now. It just doesn't seem as, certainly not as complete. It still feels, for some reason, it's not, but it still feels like you're buying a digital game, but you still have the cartridge. I know that you can trade and that you can sell. It's just off. It's a different feeling than having everything on the cartridge. And it, of course, goes against the idea of what the Switch was pushing in the first place, against what we have with the PS5 and the Xbox Series when you pop a disc in, and then you have to wait a while. Whereas with the Switch, you pop the cartridge in, everything, for the most part, would be there. You'd get the Blue Banner games here and there, of course. But for the most part, you pop the cartridge in, and it worked immediately. There was no wait time, nothing. It was easy to rent games, to trade them back and forth without needing the internet right then and there, to download 50 gigabytes maybe. Or, in Tetris's cases, apparently 4 gigabytes. So, it's unfortunate that this seems to be the situation. I don't think Nintendo will ever look to clear this up, but based on what we're seeing from publishers, this lines up perfectly, and it explains everything. So I tend to believe this information that's getting out there from the Arc System Work leaks. And who knows, maybe we'll see some third parties lean into the idea of the 64 gigabyte cartridge being good for marketing. But it's in terms of financial sense, I get why a lot of these game keys are popping up, and it's just unfortunate there's no option of, say, an 8 gigabyte at least, just to have it out there for these smaller titles, especially for indie games. It's like, well, they're not going to buy a 64 gigabyte cartridge to do this. It's strange, especially if it's a game that's like 2 gigabytes in size. Here's 64 gigabytes for no reason. So yeah, unfortunate stuff in that regard. Maybe down the line, Nintendo introduces another capacity for the cartridges. I don't know. This just doesn't seem like that's the direction they'll be working in here. I kind of think the solution is get the game key card and just roll with that. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. I'll keep an eye on this because maybe we'll have some people weigh in on this if it is correct in what they're seeing as well. Although you're definitely not going to see many publishers or even developers, I feel like, get out there and confirm this because many of them, of course, are under contract and NDA. But maybe there'll be more whispers out there to continue to at least substantiate this a bit further. But for now, that's where we'll leave it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.